We are through 2 weeks of the 2025 NFL season, and I'm starting to think that maybe I should have been drafting Jonathan Taylor over Ladd McConkey. This is
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar Alpha Play Chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally piss boys here, right?
Trico.
I totally jumped the gun there.
Had to cut the cold open short there. I'm sure you deemed it.
You were just going too long.
You just thought it was inappropriate to suggest that I should be drafting Jonathan Taylor over Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I was checking my exposures to I wanted to have a Jonathan Taylor cold open since he's the cover boy for this week on the thumbnail. And I was looking at my exposures and it's like, what can I say about Jonathan Taylor? It's like, I'm like basically even with the field on it, I'm 7.9%. So I can't be like, oh, I'm so underweight. Just trying to think of something funny. And then I looked and it's like, oh yeah, I should have clicked this guy over Ladd McConkey.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into it. I think we have plenty of we've a little bit of the talking points about the running backs, particularly rookie running backs, but we'll save that for the next segment.
Yeah, we're going to be efficient tonight. I mean, last show we were like, okay, we're going to be tight. We're going to come out of the gate strong, and we went over 2 hours per usual. We're going to try and be a little tighter, get you all the important nuggets, but maybe in just a shorter time frame tonight. So here we go.
Yeah. So, I'm sharing this, right? Yes, I am. And so my kind of biggest reaction on this was we have a lot of guys who had a lot of dropbacks, but are not have not been efficient so far. And normally inefficiency kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of dropbacks, because if your quarterback is playing badly, you're going to be losing the game and not scoring points, so you have to throw it a lot. But it is still interesting in that we have a lot of these guys with a lot of volume, creating volume for their offense, but the efficiency just hasn't been there so far, and so maybe there's kind of like an efficiency regression play, and some of these guys can deliver breakouts going forward.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys here that I want to talk about through the lens of, they're getting a lot of opportunity through the volume, through the dropbacks per game. And I want to add a little bit of color to some of them here, just because I think it's important to understand. So, for example, like Dak Prescott, Cowboys go into overtime. I believe they run 81 plays against the Giants total. So that's inflating his dropbacks per game. I would expect the Cowboys to be pretty pass heavy, but I think that number is going to be inflated. I think that's one where we'll see it trend down over the course of this season, just because it's such a high number right now. Spencer Rattler, I think that is explained by the fact that the Saints will probably be bad and that Kellen Moore really seems to be emphasizing pace, and he does seem to be leaning into the pass. So I think Rattler's is going to be reasonably sticky. That's one where I wouldn't really expect it to regress as much as I would Dak. Geno's one where this is a tricky one. There's a lot to parse here. The first one is the Raiders offensive line looked atrocious last night, like one of the worst in the league, just getting absolutely manhandled by the Chargers. I mean, even after Khalil Mack leaves the game with absolutely gruesome elbow injury. I don't know if you saw that, Trico, but his arm was going in a direction that arms don't go.
Yeah, I got to confess, I did not stay up for the 10 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, that was a late East Coast game. But, yeah, I mean, all that you missed was the Raiders' offensive line stinking out loud. So I could see this going a couple ways. Some teams, when the offensive line is that bad, they just run because it's easier for a bad offensive line to not get your quarterback killed if you're just running the ball all game. And you're like, whatever, we're just going to run. Other times they go into the more like Dolphins direction where it's like, well, we still have to pass, but we're just going to focus on getting the ball out really quickly. And the Raiders do seem to be doing a lot of deeper concepts. And it makes sense with their receivers too. You know, they've got Trey Tucker, they've got Deontay Thornton, both of those guys running deeper routes down the field. And even Brock Bowers' ADOT, I believe, is north of 10. So you've got a lot of guys operating pretty deep down the field. So it's these longer concepts. So I'm wondering if the Raiders have to change something philosophically and stick with this heavier pass rate or this higher number of dropbacks per game rather, or if they end up shifting into a more run heavy philosophy. I would say Geno has a good amount of volatility there, where Dak, I think I know directionally where he's going. Rattler, I think he's generally going to stay in the same space. In Geno, it's volatile. It could stay really high. It could decrease. The other one that I wanted to add context to is Drake Maye. Really, really interesting one because week 1, it was a ton of dropbacks. Week 2, not a ton of attempts come out of the dropbacks, and he doesn't rush as much either. So it's just a lower number of dropbacks overall. Also, a lot of the targets go to the running backs. The receivers and tight ends get fewer targets in week 2. And the commentary from the coaching staff out of week 1 was that we want to do something different in the running game. We want to have different utilization in the running game. And those that are slappy minded like myself thought, oh, this means it's Travion Henderson wheels up in week 2, baby. It's happening already. And that is not what they meant. They meant we want to run the ball more. And they actually meant that we want Antonio Gibson more involved. Of the running backs, Antonio Gibson is the one that saw his snaps increase, and both Ramondre and Henderson saw their relative share decrease compared to Gibson. So May is going to be an interesting one, but those are the ones that I think were pretty important context of guys that have that room to see improvement in their fantasy production from adding efficiency to this high volume. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on those guys, Drico.
Yeah, so one thing that that kind of stood out to me right away as I kind of parsed through the Raiders and if they're going to pass more, if they're going to run more. One thing that's kind of interesting is that per ESPN and PFF, their pass blocking win rate, their pass blocking PFF grades are actually pretty solid. Their run block win grade is dog shit. It's 32, last in the league. It's more mid-table on the PFF stuff. So I guess that the one thing I feel like there's a consensus there is that their pass blocking has actually been solid overall, which is probably how they have been able to do these kind of long ADOT throws. I guess that's what makes sense to me. And in the context of their offensive line not being very good, then I kind of think that the way that this resolves is them actually continuing to pass it the way they are, and I do think that there's I do think that the way this kind of resolves is more is, how do I say it? It still continues strong volume, both in terms of the dropbacks and probably the ADOT, but we're probably seeing some negative variance there. I don't want to say too much because outside of Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, their passing options aren't fantastic. Brock Bowers does seem to be hurt. Who knows how much? But I think I do expect that to get better, to be maybe more like week 1 than what we saw in week 2.
Yeah, that's a good note. Just from watching the game, I mean, it was the Chargers were in Geno's lap like almost immediately on what felt like the majority of dropback attempts. So I wonder if they just had a really good pass blocking grade in week 1 and week 2 was really poor or something, or maybe I'm just biased and watching week 2, and it's vivid to me because I just watched it and it was so bad by my perception. We'll talk more about Bowers and his role in the offense because I do think he is the straw that stirs the drink, and I think the injury matters there. And there were some other defensive scheme things that I noticed while watching the game that I want to talk about, but I think we
we'll go into more of the receivers. I'm just trying to understand, because like what I'm saying here is that his time to throw is pretty close to 3 seconds, which is up there. Like that's a decent time to throw, and it might be that like they kicked so much ass in week 1, and they got destroyed in week 2, and that the average is kind of coming out as middle of the pack. That might be kind of what I'm looking at with 2 weeks of data. But I still think like the signal is that their pass block is a lot better than their run blocking.
Okay. That's definitely a good note. In the same vein of all those guys that we discussed, we had kind of talked about before the show, guys that we identified on this chart that have room to benefit in their fantasy point scoring just from adding efficiency, because they're already seeing these high dropbacks, but maybe they're not as efficient as either their talent would suggest or they're just running bad currently. And so a lot of these are names we already mentioned, but Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Baker is one where we didn't really talk about yet, but I do think we've seen Baker be very efficient, just last season, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him, have that efficiency come back or improve a little bit from here, even if it's not a sustained thing. Just having efficiency spikes would make sense to me, and obviously Mahomes as well. Now, I think for Mahomes, it's pretty easy to say you might need a catalyst for that, where, hey, you need your Worthy back, you need Rashee Rice or something to help him out in the passing
and probably
game.
Probably similar with Baker, that he probably does need Godwin back.
Yeah, Godwin back certainly could be a big help and a catalyst there. The last one is another one that we mentioned already, is Drake Maye, who week 1 didn't look quite as good as a passer as I was hoping.
Right.
But last week 2 looked better, but it was on lower volume, and a lot of it was to the running backs and not the receivers and tight ends. The thing that I'm seeing from the Patriots, though, is they really do not have a weapon on offense. Like it's not even like, oh, they only have one guy. It's like there is no one that is able to consistently win. So I see this as like a vacuum for opportunity. So one of the players that I kind of gave Pat grief on consistently over the summer was Kyle Williams. We're too high on Kyle Williams. How could I ever take Kyle Williams over Demario Douglas? Demario's getting all this camp hype. He's clearly the second best, pass catcher on the Patriots, according to all these beats, these glowing reviews, right? And all it took was watching 2 games of the Patriots to be like, okay, I see we should have been drafting Kyle Williams higher, because there's just an absolute void of talent here.
Right. And Douglas being the number 2 receiver is actually bad for the Patriots, not good for Pop Douglas.
Correct. Yeah, it's just a void of talent. And so you get anyone with any modicum of talent here, be that Travion Henderson or Kyle Williams, someone with a large error bar from where we could project how good they are, right? And this is the exact kind of situation where players like that can smash. So I'm really excited about Travion Henderson going forward, just because there's so much room in this offense. Like, someone could come take such a huge portion of the pie, because just like if you think through like a wide receiver room or a backfield where there's just no competition and one guy really dominates everything just through virtue of like, well, everyone else sucks, so I guess we just give it all to this guy. That could happen here on the Patriots. We just don't know who that is yet. But I would say that the number 1 candidate for most likely to just have an enormous pie or enormous share of the pie in the offense is Travion Henderson. And then my second favorite would be a guy who's barely seeing the field right now, in Kyle Williams. And that's because everyone else that is seeing the field isn't earning that volume. And so that to me is a strong signal that, hey, there's opportunity to be had here. Someone just needs to go out and win it. And since none of these guys are currently winning it, it means that all you have to do is be good, and you can beat out all these other guys. So anyway, that's
So I want to circle back on my Geno Smith take. So Geno Smith's average time to throw last night was 3.2 seconds. So to me that is suggestive that he had time. Maybe the Charger secondary were just putting the clamps on the receivers. That's why it kind of wasn't working out. I guess we've covered Geno. We're on to the Patriots. So I kind of want to save some of this for the receiver chart, but this is a natural point for. I see Diggs down to a 58% rate last week, which I find kind of bizarre. And then I see what's his name? I see Pop Douglas. He's down to 35%. Butte, he actually led the team in routes at 74%. Then you got Matt Collins at 58%. Hunter Henry at 68%. Austin Hooper 45%. I think it's like you're saying, where the Patriots are just crying out, please, somebody be good at receiver here. And I agree with you where Henderson is a good candidate to help them. He's a running back, so he's not going to be. You can't really build up the plane of your receiving game on him, but he's a good candidate. And I agree with you that Kyle Williams, breaking out would hit like crack for the New England offense.
Yeah, I mean, they need it. The other angle that I wanted to cover with the Patriots, guys that have room to see their rushing share grow as a quarterback, like see their bubble size increase. You'll notice, Lamar Jackson, pretty big bubble. Justin Fields, big bubble, right? These guys that are rushing for a decent number of yards per game. Drake Maye's bubble is, smaller than Josh Allen, smaller than Jaden Daniels. He hasn't actually been rushing as much to start the season as we saw last year. I think a lot of it could just be, getting comfortable with this new offensive system with Josh McDaniels. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see as the season develops, Josh McDaniels decides to try and use that strength of Drake Maye's, where last year so much of it was out of structure stuff. It was his scramble rate. He had a really high scramble rate and really high yards per scramble. I do think that that's something where we could see that get incorporated in more as the season goes on. So just the fact that he has room to grow from an efficiency standpoint and room to add with his legs, I think makes him one of the most exciting quarterbacks to target. Is like, hey, this is a guy with a lot of room for the upside going forward in the season.
And just to agree with you to underline that, he did have 10 rush attempts in week 2. He only saw like 31 yards. That's got to be a statistical aberration where we do not expect Drake Maye to average 3 yards per attempt. You probably see that like five or six by the end of the year. It would be my kind of maybe optimistic case, but he is rushing. It's just like it. I guess one of the few things the Dolphins did well was contain Drake Maye rushing. I would not expect. I would have expect his efficiency on those scrambles to be much higher.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other group of quarterbacks I wanted to talk about here, because the way I'm looking at how we can break down this chart and add value to you guys is where are the guys where we could see them improve from beyond where they are already at on this chart. Like, I don't want you to just look at the chart and be like, all right, I'm going to play the guys that look good on the chart. Easy game. Like, I'm trying to find the emerging trends where, hey, this player could improve even further from where they're at. And so this cohort is guys that are already efficient and could just explode if put into the right game script where they're forced to pass a little bit more. And those three are the ones with the highest adjusted yards per attempt. That's Lamar Jackson. Guy throws for 4 touchdowns last week. Basically all goes to nobodies. You get 2 to Devontae Walker. You get 1 to Tylan Wallace, and then 1 to DeAndre Hopkins, almost a second one to Hopkins. But just, very few attempts and only 225 yards or something because they just didn't need to do anything more than that. And then you get Jordan Love, who's been ultra efficient. And again, just never hasn't been pushed yet this season. No need. He's a really exciting one. The Packers offense has just been really good. You just need them to run into a team that could actually put up some serious points against their very formidable defense. And Love could be an absolute smash. And then the last one, I already talked about this guy last week, and I'm just going to bang the table for him. It kind of feels like the year where I was saying, hey, CJ Stroud and the Texans pass catchers are going to win someone a milli maker. Just, stack them every single week until it works. And then a couple weeks after that, Utica ends up with CJ Stroud triple stack and wins the milli. And so the one I'm calling out here is Justin Herbert. We talked about it last week where this is going to be a really good season as far as the rushing profile for Justin Herbert. Saw it again last night. He's very involved in the rushing game. And then their pass rate over expectation was high again. It was above 14%. Again, that's 2 weeks in a row. Their total number of attempts.
And what's interesting to me about that is even with such a high PROE, their dropbacks is like pretty in check. Like that's like what, 36 dropbacks a game on a 14% PROE. So these are games that in traditional Chargers, Herbert would probably be looking at like 10 points. But their game plan is just so different now that even in games where they're not really pushed that much, they're still trying to win. Whereas in a game where if their defense gives up points, and then obviously their pass rate would probably go up a tad. So would their things like their pace, like and things like that. And if you're able to keep that efficiency, where the reason they have to increase their drop back is because the other team is scoring points, not because Herbert is being inefficient. Like you could see some monster weeks.
Yeah. He was on the showdown slate last night. I went in and manually adjusted Herbert's projection up. He was like my highest projected player on the slate by a good ways. Okay. He's my highest owned captain player. I slam him. I'm like, I'm so smart. I'm following my own advice. The game plays out. It looks great. Herbert's the highest scoring player on the slate, and it was my worst showdown slate for ROI on the season so far. So that's just the way it goes. You can be totally right about something, and you can still lose all your money. But boy, it feels great to be right. I didn't have any other quarterback notes. Did you have anyone else you wanted to talk about before we get into running backs?
No. I think we kind of covered the basic trends here. I mean, we've got it. I think we made this note last week where you have a bunch of like bad teams with a bunch of dropbacks. So their teams are still useful for fantasy. You're talking Saints. Even the Panthers are kind of interesting. Browns interesting, not as good last week, but you're still seeing that crazy attempts, which is helpful. But I don't want to spend too much more time on it. So let's move on. Actually, I'm going to zoom out. So let's move on. So we thought, given kind of the freak out, the panic, the I told you so around rookie running backs, we thought it would be pretty useful to look at pretty quickly where the rookies in 23 and 24 were looking around week 2. And And my kind of comps, the comps that I came out with, where you look at kind of Bijan Robinson, who I think he was kind of the floor case for Ashton Genty, where he had the Arthur Smith usage, and he was like the RB1, but not getting the dominant bell cow usage that we wanted. So I think that floor case is playing out for Genty, especially seeing bizarre things like Labe taking a clear, like, gotta have it snaps for the Raiders. And then we'll see. He's in a pretty similar spot to Hampton as well. We'll get onto Hampton. The other one that was interesting from 23 was, or at least for me, was Gibbs. Gibbs here at this point, he was in the same part of the chart that that Henderson and what's the other guy, RJ Harvey, were in. And obviously Gibbs was a frustrating start to the year, but then ended that year with as a pretty nice piece. What am I forgetting anyone from 23?
From 23, I think Tajay Spears also shows up here. And so just like to give you an idea of, hey, here's a couple different types of outcomes you can get from rookies. Like obviously Tajay Spears, nowhere close to how exciting an end to the season Jahmyr Gibbs has, where Gibbs is going on to, the end of the season. Gibbs was literally having a legendary running back stretch. He was scoring, I want to say there's a 4-game stretch where he scored over 21 points per game. And I think in 3 of those games, he was over 26. Like he was going crazy. And so,
yeah, I remember that now. He had a monster end where you had the Montgomery injury. So he took over for a while. Then Montgomery came back. And then they were like, yeah, well, Gibbs is still really good. So, but you see how I try to manipulate you there until I was talking about the good ones, and then I was making you the rookie bad guy.
But I think it's important too to talk about, hey, like you can get some. Not all these guys are going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously. Gibbs is right. Of course. Hey, don't panic yet. Your guy could still turn into a Jahmyr Gibbs level smash, but also like Tajay Spears is in the range of outcomes too. But let's move on to 2024. So last year, and we'll take a look at where the rookies land here.
So actually, the other one that I wanted to mention for 23 is you'll notice Achane isn't even on the chart here.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, he doesn't even show up in week 2. He's not even really seeing the field yet.
So then 2024, I think I'm glad we talked about 23 first, because that seems like a more normal rookie year. 24 is a little bit of a weird one where that was kind of seen as like and not a very good class. But the ones that are kind of interesting here is you have Bucky Irving, where he turns into like absolute dominant league winner, and you're at what, 25%, 30% snap rate. Now, obviously, he's priced quite differently to a lot of the rookies this year, but it just goes to show you that somebody who kind of like he took over that backfield by the end of the year, to start the year, he was the backup, and that's kind of like that's the that's how a lot of these guys start, just because they're backup now. Like it's still a long season, and then I think some of the other ones that we had. Last year was like Tyrone Tracy. He's not on this chart, but ended up being important. But then some of the other kind of like the less encouraging comps are like Blake Corum. Is there anyone else?
Tank Bigsby's on here. Actually, that was Bigsby's second year last year.
Yeah, sophomore year. And then he's not on the 23 chart.
Yeah, and then you have Braylon Allen as well. It's like, hey, this is what Braylon Allen got the opportunity early, but then Braylon Allen's what it looks like when your guy stinks, right? Like, oops,
yeah,
he stink. Oh well, that does happen. Just for me, it's a little frustrating to hear people like so quickly dismiss all these rookies, like just how polarized it is, where everyone talks. I feel like there's two sides where the one side is, oh, all my rookies are going to smash down I can't believe all these normies don't get that rookies come on down the road. And then the other side is, oh, the rookies aren't doing anything yet. They're all dead. The truth is in the middle of that, where, hey, dude, a lot of the rookies are going to stink. Like, there's a whole bunch of Braylon Allens and Tajay Spears, and it's a spectrum, right? Like, Braylon Allen, total stinker, like not useful at all for fantasy last year. Tajay Spears, like somewhat useful as a rookie. And then you like get leveled up to the Bucky Irving, the Jahmyr Gibbs level success, those hits, right? But it's a spectrum. Not everyone is going to be these binary outcomes.
A bigger percentage of them to be hits this year based on the kind of like the talent of the class. But there's still going to be guys who just miss.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the charts for this year. I actually go to this year's charts, and then can you go to the backup chart first? Because there's a guy that I want to talk about while I'm thinking.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, he doesn't even make the backup chart yet. So this is such a great one to talk about because he's following like the DeVon Achane archetype, like the Bucky Irving, where Achane not even on the chart in week 2. And then Bucky Irving, like, oh, he's just a backup, But what Bucky had going for him was he looked really good every time he touched the ball, right? Now, the one knock that I had on Bucky last year was like those big runs that Bucky would get, the chunk plays, weren't touchdowns. He doesn't turn them into like these big Saquon Barkley level or Jonathan Taylor level. Haha, I got through the defense. Now it's an 80-yard touchdown. LOL. Like, enjoy trying to catch me. But Bucky didn't really do that because he doesn't have that top gear, that like elite finishing.
He doesn't have the long speed.
Right. But he's still so good that it doesn't really matter. He's just going to be so efficient. And it's like, there's some guys where it's death by 1,000 cuts. They're going to get you through a bunch of 5-yard carries over and over. Bucky's going to just slice you like with 3 or 4 big cuts. It's like, here's a 20-yard gash. Here's a 25-yard gash. And it doesn't matter that he's not finishing the runs. Because Buck, like with a touchdown, because don't worry, he'll get there eventually. But the player that reminds me of that Bucky archetype, where he's ultra efficient, he's also a tough tackle. He's not just this like speed freak where he's only breaking long plays because he's so fast. Like, he's also breaking tackles. He's useful in the passing game. He's useful in the rushing game between the tackles and also outside. Is Bhayshul Tuten. Tuten is the one to me that has the Jahmyr Gibbs, Bucky Irving level end of season upside. Like, he is the at all costs, my strongest bet to be a league winner by the end of the season of all of the rookie running backs. Like, this is going to sound crazy, but if you just told me straight up, like, you are allowed to have one of these guys on your roster for the rest of season, who do you want it to be? Genty, Hampton, Skattebo, Harvey, Henderson, Tuten. I will just take Tuten over all of them. And that's with the caveat of like, you're telling me that this player has to be the league winner, got to be the guy that smashes. I think he is the highest ceiling because he has all of the stuff that made Bucky fantastic in the scheme with the coach that made Bucky fantastic. And he looks like Bucky plus as far as his skill set. He's Bucky, but he can finish those runs with touchdowns. So I am extremely encouraged by Tuten. I think it's wheels all the way up on him. If you're in a league with trades, trade what you need to trade for Tuten right now. I don't care if it seems like an overpay. Like, trade what you need to trade to go get him. That's my stance.
Yeah, what's interesting is he only had 16% of the snaps. Or no, sorry, that was not correct. He only had 25% of the snaps last week. But on what is it? 8 rush attempts, 6 routes that he converted into 2 targets. He scored 15 points. I think it's safe to say that he's earned more playing time going forward.
Yeah.
What's funny is that when you started that, I thought you were going to angle it into Judkins, and I was like, wow, that's really strong to say that Judkins. But Tuten makes a lot more sense.
I mean, Judkins is a great segue partner because I think Judkins is also a really strong. Here's the problem with Judkins, though. The offense may be so bad that he gets a little capped from his touchdown equity, And I think that having the door opened to Dylan Sampson is really harmful to him, because there's a universe where Judkins never has the stuff that keeps him out of training camp in the summer, and he's just so entrenched as the number one that he's like a 3-down workhorse. He's very capable in the passing game. He wasn't like a do nothing back in the passing game in college. He could have easily been, 3-down, stay on the field for every snap, play 2-minute drill type of guy. But I think they got to see enough of Sampson to be like, oh yeah, this guy's pretty cool. We like him a lot. And then the fact that Ford, like the only useful thing that they like him for is pass catching, also is like, Judkins has just left enough of a window open now that those guys will hurt him a little bit, and they're going to steal some of those high value touches in the receiving game, which is a bit of a bummer.
Yeah. So I think what I think about Judkins is that he's so dominant as a rusher. Like I guess there's a different question, a different conversation about the receiving stuff, which is what you're leaning at. I think he's going to consolidate almost all the major rushing stuff. He when you combine how dominant his rushing profile was in college, it was a very he was immediately as a freshman dominant rusher, which is a very strong sign. And then obviously he was part of arguably one of the best college rosters of all time and a focal point for that. So you add in what Gretsch calls the long view stuff, which is very, very strong for him in my opinion. And then you kind of add in where he was extremely efficient on against the Ravens, which is the Browns struggled overall. So him being good, and I think he had if I'm looking at the next gen stat stuff, he had 2.2 yards over expected per attempt on 10 attempts. So what does he had 6.1 yards per attempt. And then obviously you're going to put up good tape when you do that. But him doing that and then the other guys all struggling in the running game is probably a good sign that he's going to I don't know. I guess I have to caveat this with the pending suspension stuff, but I do think that the way this goes is he strangleholds the running game. And then my other take is that Sampson is such a good receiver that I do think he grabs the receiving stuff too. It's I don't think that's as strong an upside case as you're making for Tuten, but I do think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean Judkins still he gets 3 targets, 3 receptions on.
Yeah.
Here's a couple caveats to Judkins, and before I pour any cold water on this, I'm mega Judkins bull. We're very aligned. I just want to provide additional color to this. So Judkins didn't have a ton of running room early when he was getting work. He wasn't racking up a ton of yards. His long on the day of 31 yards came in the fourth quarter after the game was I think it's 41-10 at that point. So it was pretty over. Dylan Gabriel's in the game. It was well and truly done. So maybe there's a little bit of lack of effort on the Ravens side from tackling, or maybe some backups were in there. But
so let me push back a little bit on that. So on the next gen stat stuff, over 50% of his runs were above expected, which I guess 50% doesn't sound like that much, but that's one of the highest. So the highest is so far is 58%. So him being at Tuten is at 54.5%. So him being at 50%, it's kind of suggestive that it did not come from one run. He had a good day.
He also, the charting seems wrong to me on his missed tackles forced, because I watched enough of this game. Are they charting broken tackles differently than missed tackles forced? No, they're not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, the charting's wrong here, because he broke 3 tackles on that long run. So, but they have him down for 2 missed tackles forced. He had more than that. So that's interesting. I'm kind of surprised that would be wrong because like on one play you can count.
It's objective. It should be objective.
Yeah, on one play you can count more missed tackles for. So seems a little funny, but whatever. Anyway, we're kind of in lockstep on Judkins. I think it's wheels up. Also, I mean,
at cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can probably get him relatively cheap in most places where you could like trade for him, like in a home league. I think you're going to be able to get him pretty cheap still. It's not as aggressive as I would be pursuing Tuten in a home league. Like Tuten, just go nuts. Like if you have a veteran running back, like if you have enough running back depth that you're not hurting if you trade away someone good, like you still have someone to play, like trade away someone that's scoring right now that looks good. Like trade away a Tony Pollard who's getting 20 carries a game for Bhayshul Tuten. Like so many of your normie opponents would just snap accept that. Like Tony Pollard for Bhayshul Tuten, like so. Not that you have to go trade something like that to get it done, but just to give a frame of reference for like what I'm willing to go out and do. Definitely would be willing to trade guys that are scoring good points right now for the upside that is Bhayshul Tuten.
Yeah, I agree. And then the other thing that's kind of like a split backfield that I wanted to talk about is the Seattle stuff, where you asked me last week how I felt about it, and I didn't want to say I actually honestly God I didn't have an answer, just because I was like, I think Kenneth Walker's way better, but they played Charbonnet way more. At this point, I think I've seen enough where this is the third season in a row, or say the last 2 years, they've gone into the season wanting to use Charbonnet, and then as the season goes on, when Walker's healthy, they're like, no, it's Walker, like he's better than you. And I think the last game where like he only had what? He had let me get the number.
Who, Charbonnet?
He was on Kenneth Walker was only on the field for like 36% of snaps, but he was so good that like he had like 100 yards, and the next gen stat stuff on Charbonnet like was that he just stunk out loud.
Yeah, it was bad. It was not good. I believe it was 15 carries for 10 yards.
15 carries for 10 yards. And like some of the stuff on this next gen stat stuff is that like he's supposed to be like a success rate guy, where like he's not the most explosive, but you know what, he doesn't screw around. He gets the yards that are he'll get the yards that are blocked. He's not going to set you back. Whereas he's got like a 23% or run over expected percentage. He's on the metric that kind of measures like how much he's dilly-dallying around the line of scrimmage. He's one of the highest of any running back. So basically he's dilly-dallying. He's dilly-dallying more than any running back in the NFL. And that's supposed to be the thing that people said Kenneth Walker was bad for. So I think, to me, it's pretty clear that he's kind of played himself out of a job. He's lost a job for the third year in a row. And it's kind of like, it's certainly not what you paid for. This is what I call the Vortex. You weren't paying for Kenneth Walker to having to outplay Charbonnet to earn his job back. But it does seem clear to me that that's what's happened.
Yeah, that's a good call. Another guy I wanted to talk about who's kind of in this is what would happen if Zach Charbonnet was really good archetype is Cam Skattebo, who is just taking the lunch of Tyrone Tracy. I mean, if you watch the Giants-Cowboys game, Brian Daboll's in love with Cam Skattebo. Like he's going to be sending him a Valentine's Day card. Like he's definitely, he loves the idea
he's going to be
of Cam
buying
Skattebo.
The Arizona State turf.
Oh, what do you mean he's going to be buying? It's already installed, baby. His whole backyard is scat turf. But yeah, like you can just tell the way he's deploying him. Also, this is like a zoom out on the chart and like the longer view stuff, not just Skattebo's profile where, hey, this guy really profiles like he could be a 3-down back. He's a strong tackle breaker. The strongest part of his profile is in the receiving game, right? So, I mean, that's like the big barrier to a lot of guys like him, where they're these like between the tackles grinders, like, not super explosive. It's like, oh, well, if this guy could catch, maybe we could keep him on the field for 3 downs. Like Skattebo, like his best part of his game is that he's great. He's an asset in the receiving game. And so I feel like Tracy has almost no moat to this guy. The only thing that Tracy has over him is Tracy's probably like a little bit more explosive, or I guess a lot of bit more explosive than Skattebo. But Skattebo seems like he's kind of an identity back, like he's going to take over the offense. The split was close to 50-50 this last game. I'd expect it to go more and more in Skattebo's direction, where Tracy is coming in as kind of the change of pace guy, like the lightning to Skattebo's thunder. But the nice thing about
50% snap rate in week 2 is like nuts.
Well, here's the other thing that I got off topic on for myself. Think back to camp when they were talking about how much they liked Skattebo, and then he gets set back with the hammy, right? And he misses multiple weeks of training camp, right? And then when he gets back, they basically immediately try to work him back in. It's not like we're going to really take it slow with you. It's as soon as Skattebo's available, the Giants made it a priority to make sure that he was getting involved. Like, to me, the
right after he missed the time, they were like, no, it's going to be important for this guy to get familiarity. Let's make sure we get that for him now.
Yeah. And so the signal was really strong that like he was a part of the plan out of the gate. It wasn't like we'll see what this guy has. We'll see what he can contribute. Like plan A was Cam Skattebo takes over the backfield. And that little hamstring tweak is the only thing that is standing between Cam Skattebo and 70% of the snaps already. So I think we see that trend up. He's a really fun one. The downside stuff with Skattebo is I'm worried about this Giants offense. I know they just had a game where they put up a ton of points against the shitty Cowboys defense, but Russ Wilson is not gonna look as good as he did. And by the way, like, I'm sure that people will be like, what are you talking about when I say this? But if you actually watch the game, like the first half of that Cowboys-Giants game, Russ looked outright bad. There were just a couple of the moonball. Russ did the Russ thing again, where it's like, well, I'm going to look really bad for a lot of this, but I'm going to connect on some moonballs, and that's just everything else won't really matter then. And that's basically what happened. And so it looks so much better in the box score than it was to actually watch. Like, I dare you to go back and watch it. I double dog dare you to sit through those throws. The moonballs are cool. Like, they're sick, big plays, but there's a lot of bad throws out there, like to the extent where they were getting Jackson Dart in the game. Like, they were swapping Russ out for Dart. Like, they had packages for Dart. They're already trying to see if they can get Dart on the field, right? So that's my concern.
The only thing about Russ is with the moonballs and it's like he can't keep getting away with this.
And he does. He does. In fact,
kind of does. He kind of does. I think he's probably like a worse than league average starter.
He's definitely a worse than league average starter, but
I'm probably terrible at the other stuff. But then the moonballs are so good. He's still like that's like the last thing in his arsenal that just like stays there. It probably means that we get more games like this. But if defenses just decide to take that away, those games will just stink.
Yeah. So my concern with the Skattebo upside is, what if the offense is much worse than what we saw this last week? Like, you have poor touchdown equity, they can't sustain drives, things like that. But I feel good about Skattebo's high value touches in the offense. Like, he should get a lot of receiving. He's very clearly the goal line back. So he's exciting. How would you compare him and Judkins going forward? Because I think they have similar warts that are offensive, like environment related warts. But what are your thoughts on them as one comparison?
So, for Skattebo, his competition being Tyrone Tracy, is helpful in that even though the team likes Tyrone Tracy, I don't think he has quite the same talent. Tyrone Tracy has quite the same talent as Samson, or upside. I think he's got the explosiveness. The team trusts him with pass blocking, so that does represent some kind of an obstacle to Skattebo. But I agree with you that like it's so compelling that they're splitting a 50-50 already. Like it's an even if they're even, he's even scenario. So I probably feel a bit better about Skattebo's kind of ability to consolidate the opportunity. I don't know. I think I'm biased on the Browns. I think the offensive environment stuff is kind of a wash. And then for the Browns, it's like, so they're going to have a really high attempt rate every week, but it's Joe Flacco or Dylan Gabriel. So the efficiency is not going to be great. But on the other hand, if you're comparing the long view stuff between Judkins and Skattebo, I don't think it's that close. Where Judkins obviously get the strong draft capital ahead of him. Like he dominated the freshman in the SEC. Then he became a focal point on most talented roster, blah, blah, blah. I think if you're kind of comparing talent level, you give that to Judkins. I think you pretty handily give that to Judkins. But then I do think Samson, the mixture of Samson and Ford, that's enough of a check that even with that stronger talent, it's still kind of obstacle consolidating. I think they're pretty close. I probably at this point if not for the suspension, I'd lean Judkins. But then when you mix in the suspension, like taking that risk off the table for what's his name, Skattebo, like that pushes him ahead is what I'd say.
I think suspension risk is pretty close to, it's not zero, but it's pretty close to zero for
you think so?
My read, yeah.
The
NFL is just trying. It's a let it die quietly kind of thing. So you don't come out and outright say, in his first game, like, and by the way, we won't be suspending him. It's they recognize that the correct thing to do is not suspend the guy who, his ex-girlfriend tried to frame him for domestic violence. Like he was innocent, and so it's a hey, let's not suspend this guy kind of situation. It's also a situation where anything that's even tangentially related to domestic violence is something that the NFL wants to handle with extreme caution, just from a PR standpoint. And so this is a let it die quietly type of situation.
I could see that being the case. I still think that it's not. I don't think it's off the table. I think it's still like a risk that's out there that we don't understand that well. We don't have that much access to the NFL's inner workings, but I'm okay. It's a stat chasing thing. I think I'm okay for us to move on and disagree.
Yeah, I want to hit. There's a couple guys on the backup chart I basically want to give one sentence blurbs on, and then I want to go to the starters chart because there's a couple guys.
Yeah, it's wild that we've been on this so long we haven't hit the starters.
But I think there were important guys that didn't even quite make the backups chart that we needed to talk about. So I think it was good. Quick one sentence. I'm going to say my thing, and then if you have anything to add, go ahead. If not, I'll go to the next guy. Trey Benson, like legitimate. He's in the like Tyler Algier category. He's a Tyler Algier plus level backup now, where he's got that contingent value and he's actually getting work and seeing points. He's in like the Dylan Sampson category for me too. Anything to
he's good. That's the thing. He's good. He's good. The team likes him, and he's got the backup stuff. And the fact that he's already playing or he is playing, that's like the best sign of contingent upside. Where he's playing even with James Conner out there. So if James Conner gets hurt, or something happens to him, it would be wheels up for Trey Benson.
Yeah, getting a lot of passing game work as well. If you look at his snap breakdown here, a lot of routes.
Right.
Other guy,
That is
Kyle
interesting.
Monangai. The Kyle Monangai, Roschon Johnson wars have been decided. Kyle Monangai is the victor. Roschon Johnson, fully active this last week, only played special teams. It is Joever with a capital J for Roschon Johnson. Bad news. It's also Joever with a capital J for Kyle Monangai because he stinks. Now, there's an out because DeAndre Swift also stinks. But Swift is going to be like the lead back here. He's their best back operating in space and in the passing game. But man, they just this is a team that please trade for Travis Etienne, Bears. Please trade for Travis Etienne. Fully unleash Tuten for the Jags because you need help desperately here. Anything to add on Monangai though?
No, but I have a further thing to add on Trey Benson. So Trey Benson actually ran more routes than James Conner last week. Saw more pass blocking snaps. No, it was 16 routes to 12 and 2 pass blocks to 1. But still, to me, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
That and you got 5 targets versus 1. So, it's only 1 game, but he was their main pass catching back, in that game, which I'm glad you made that note. That is interesting.
Yeah, that is important. Spells trouble for James Conner for sure. The other guy, we don't really have to talk about this guy, but Aaron Jones on IR. So let's go to the starters chart. And we can talk about Jordan Mason, who I would expect him to absorb an enormous amount of the work. I think that we'll just probably see the Vikings go with Jordan Mason, and then they're going to have someone else come in, be it a Cam Akers or be it a, whoever else takes over for them. We're going to learn a name, most likely,
It's Scam Akers. Scam Akers is the backup, or he's the guy that they elevated, or they brought to their practice squad.
Yeah, it's just like, how long does that last,
Yeah, no, true. And I think what's also interesting about Mason is that even before Aaron, he was already running routes. They're already trusting him to pass block. So the beat on him going into the year was that he was just going to be a rushing only guy, and Aaron Jones was going to be the primary receiver. And that's not necessarily so that was pretty true, but they were still trusting the guy with passing down work. So I think I agree with you in that, like, hey, they're going to trust this guy with a lot. Like, they're not going to limit him to rushing stuff. He's going to be running routes. He's going to be catching passes too. Like, the next 4 games are going to be pretty good for Jordan Mason.
Yeah, definitely agree there. I just want to kind of quickly hit on some guys with thoughts that I had from the games this weekend. Nick Chubb looked atrocious. Basically, Nick Chubb needs good blocking to look somewhat decent. He looked decent enough in week 1. Looked really bad in week 2. He saves his fantasy day with a long touchdown run, but that was the Bucs letting him score, so the Bucs could get the ball back. Otherwise, the Texans run the clock out and win the game there without the Bucs ever getting a possession. Nick Chubb runs the ball in for the touchdown, gives the ball back to the Bucs. Texans lose the game because of it. And Chubb, gets rewarded with 9 extra fantasy points, give or take, whatever. It was like a 25-yard or 30-yard run or something like that. But yeah, Nick Chubb should have had basically stone nothing. He had one really nice screen pass early that he took for a little bit of a chunk. But other than that, and that was well blocked. So that's basically Nick Chubb can get what's blocked, but he has basically zero juice. He's toast. If at any point Mixon is healthy, Nick Chubb turns into exactly 0. And then also, if at any point the Texans get fed up and they're like, God, we need something else. There are guys on the street right now that would do better, which I hate to say about Nick Chubb. I really would love to root for Nick Chubb, and I think Nick Chubb the human is awesome. Nick Chubb the fantasy football asset is not super awesome anymore. He's just, the poor guy's been through way too much. 3 catastrophic knee injuries and then a broken foot will do that to a person.
Yeah, I'd love to disagree with you, but there's nothing here in the data that I think the data kind of backs you up. Where he had 5 missed tackles in week 1, 0 last night, and like you're saying, he had the breakaway touchdown where it does seem like they probably did let him score.
It was the Make-A-Wish touchdown. You and I both would have also scored the touchdown. If they wanted more than nothing. There was nothing.
When I saw it live, I was like, "Wow, the safety really had the angle there. He wasn't at him."
Yeah, no,
but
it went exactly
the probably could have
caught him. Man, okay, you want to? This is gonna be like the stupidest chalk of all time, but it's gonna work. You ready for the lock button? Make sure this guy's in 100% of your lineups if you're playing Showdown come Thursday. Just lock James Cook. They're going. Bills play the Dolphins. The Dolphins are absolute dog shit, just terrible. Ramondre Stevenson, just put up a really good game against the Dolphins. Jonathan Taylor smoked him in week 1. And the Bills just showed us what the plan is when they get out to a crazy lead. They were beating the brakes off the Jets. And what was the plan? It was, hey, James, do you want to just rack up a bunch of really cool stats, dude? They're happy to let him do it. So James Cook, ultra super mega lock for the Thursday night Showdown game here. There will be games where it doesn't have to flow through him, but the game sets up to be like that, and it would not surprise me at all if the Bills just decide to lean on him in a positive game script for them.
Yeah, no argument here. The other note I had was and I think this is kind of widely seen, but Achane actually leading running backs in combined rush attempts and routes is kind of surprising, but then he's also getting heavily targeted, heavily targeted. I think he has 3 yards per run as well. 25, something 25, 30% targets per run on the year. So it honestly insane usage for Achane, mostly as a receiver, where he's kind of the only thing that works in their offense right now. Kind of.
I believe in week 2, he had greater yards after catch than he did total receiving yards because everything came behind the line of scrimmage for him. If you watch them play, it's the same thing that we've seen in the past for him. It's just the extension of the run game. The Dolphins want to be able to run the ball from outside the hashes, basically. And that's what he's doing in a lot of this. It's just these little swing passes, these dump offs or screens where he's getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage. It's basically just conceptually think of the play where the Dolphins are allowed to line their center up over outside the hashes, but the defense is not allowed. They have to pretend like they don't see it. And then it's just direct snap to Achane. That's basically what they're doing functionally. It's this guy's just going to get the ball and be over here on the outside with fewer guys to have to beat. So the benefit to that is this is all running game basically, but he's also just getting a point for the reception too. So
I was wrong. It's 25% targets per run, 8 yards per run. Still insane.
Yeah.
But very strong.
The other guys at the top, I think all of these, I just want to kind of go through these really quick. So Achane, super strong, start every week, kind of smash, should be very valuable in DFS every week. I'm skipping Kamara and Pollard. I'm going to come back to it, I promise. CMC, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky, Josh Jacobs, Bijan. That's that top tier for me of you start these guys every week. They're going to be smashes pretty much every week. Don't really worry about it. They all either are ultra efficient or get such insane. They all get incredible usage, but they're all just going to be very, very strong. Josh Jacobs, less efficient than these other guys and not as involved in the passing game as any of those other guys I mentioned in the same breath, Bijan, Bucky, JT and Jacobs are like similarly involved in the passing game, but JT is just efficient in a way that Josh Jacobs is not. But Josh Jacobs happens to play on an offense that's just going to score a shit ton of touchdowns, and so he's marked safe from the trap back profile where it's like, hey, it actually doesn't matter because it's a really good offense. Going to Kamara and Pollard, though, I think these are the ones where like you as a fantasy player can add the most value here because the roles are insane. The problem is both these teams suck ass. So what's valuable is if they find themselves in a game where their team is not only in it, but they also happen to be playing a defense that, like, you don't want them to be in it because it's a low scoring game. It's not going to work out well for these backs in that type of environment. It's got to be that they are in it and that the opposing team is going to score points on offense, but not do very much on defense. And so early kind of like teams that fit that archetype so far, like you're looking for when they play teams like the Cowboys or the Bengals or the Dolphins, like those are the teams that kind of fit that mold where it's like these guys suck on defense. They're competent enough on offense. So that's what you're looking for with Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard. Basically in other matchups, like if they're playing a stronger defense or a team that's like doesn't have as high powered of an offense, so they might just, play a boring, low scoring game. I think these guys are really easy fades from a volume standpoint. They'll project really well most weeks because of the role. And it's just like, if they beat me, they beat me kind of thing. Like whatever, like it's just like, it's a volume play. The efficiency is probably not going to be there. But you can really lean into it in those matchups where they're set up to smash. So anyway, that was the thoughts I had on those top guys.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just looking at the schedules. I don't see anything coming up for the Saints on that. They do have the Dolphins on their schedule. Not sure what week. Like November 30th. So towards the end of the year. But I don't think there's anything too current. But let's move on to the tight ends. I guess we're not surprised that the usage is so fantastic for Trey McBride. I wish the points were a little bit better. I do think those days are coming. But but to me it's still like we've got further confirmation that Juwan Johnson is the Saints ride or die. Like where he's just playing an insane amount of snaps. Like he's their guy. He's getting heavily targeted. Like 7.2 ADOT is pretty solid for a tight end. True, the first 2 weeks, Juwan Johnson league winner.
Yeah, Juwan Johnson's a tight end in name only. He's a receiver. He's the wide receiver too, effectively on the Saints. It's Chris Olave, then Juwan Johnson, then Rashid Shaheed. But yeah, I capitulated on Juwan Johnson last week, and I was bummed I didn't draft as much of him this year because he was one of my highest owned tight ends last year, and I was just like, all right, if it wasn't going to work last year, it's over this year. And that was just super duper wrong. So this is again, I have in the notes, Omega Juwan Johnson capitulation self-flagellation segment. So that's what this is. But we can move on. He's a great, rest of the season. You're super happy to have him on your best ball teams. If you need a tight end, he's on waivers. He's a smash pickup. He's really, really strong going forward.
Yeah. And he's available on a surprising amount of waivers as well. So definitely get him.
Here's a question for you. Let's say hypothetically I've got Harold Fannin on a team and Juwan Johnson's also out there on waivers. Now, I think that, holding both those guys feels a little weird to me. Like I probably could get more upside from a skill position player from that roster spot. So are you cutting Harold Fannin to pick up Juwan Johnson?
It depends, right? Where it depends on who your other tight ends are. Like if you're talking, most of my teams, I would have drafted like Trey McBride or Bowers or somebody like that. And on those teams, it's very clearly you want Fannin. On teams where I didn't get an elite tight end, I'm probably those are teams. It depends on how short the bench is, I suppose. Those are teams where you probably can roster boat because you're using a small enough draft capital on tight end in total. But if you want tight end points straight away, it's Juwan Johnson all day. Like Harold Fannin is a nice early season play. He's not bad, but the strength of his kind of rest of season rank comes from there's like some percentage chance, we can debate how big that is, but there is some percentage chance that by the end of the year he's got the Harold Fannin talent combined with the Juwan Johnson usage, and in those games he's just absolutely crushing Juwan Johnson, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess let me frame it in a slightly different way. That's going to be even more actionable for many of the slappies listening at home. Let's say that I'm fine holding 2 tight ends on my roster. I want Juwan Johnson right now to help me win a couple games. I don't want to drop Harold Fannin because I want the upside, but I've got some skill position players I could cut. So these are guys that I'd be cutting to add Juwan Johnson to my team because I already have Harold Fannin, of course, because I'm a slappy. You just hit me with a yes or no. Luther Burden, yes or no? You dropping him for Juwan Johnson?
Juwan, am I dropping? Oh man, that one hurts. Probably not. Probably not. The points you get from Juwan Johnson over the long term, they're probably not. Over Fannin, probably not enough to give up that upside, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay, a couple guys that we can talk about quickly. I want to get some quick ones out of the way. Travis Kelce, super duper toast. Don't start him in a home league. Like he's
we said it last week. We called him Joever last week. Mark Andrews was the guy where I'm like, let's see another week. It's absolutely Joever. Like
it's also Joever for him. Yeah, the old guard is done. The future is now, old man. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, you're out of here. Kind of an unceremonious end to.
Yeah. It's kind of sad that those guys kind of headlined elite tight end for so long, and
yeah.
Honestly, I wish Travis Kelce retired.
I know he could have gone out on top, man. Yeah, last year would have been such a great. I mean, other than losing the Super Bowl, but
right.
Okay, 2 rookies that I think are quick hitters. Mason Taylor, empty routes, worthless loser. Correct? He's not a.
Not when you have Garrett Wilson, like absolutely consolidating targets as he should, and then not that many dropbacks for Fields, but when they don't, when they do drop back, he's rushing for a bunch of them, or he's throwing it to Garrett Wilson. Like not a worthwhile fantasy asset, unfortunately.
Another one that is not a worthwhile fantasy asset, unfortunately, is Colston Loveland. We're gonna have the early season funeral for him. He is allowed to rise from the dead, but only after 3 days, and we are not even through the proverbial day one of the post rookie tight end crucifixion timeline currently. So unfortunate because we've got a lot of Colston Loveland on our shared FFPC teams.
I'm sad. I thought the price was right, but it's looking pretty bad. Where he's a dog to he's Cole Kmet is leading pretty handily in the tight end snaps. But then even Cole Kmet isn't having a great role, so it does, like, tight end is a lot of it is about how the coach wants to use you, and it does not appear that Ben Johnson wants to use these tight ends. Maybe that's like too premature a read, given that they did like LaPorta. Well, Hawkinson and then LaPorta.
Yeah.
So maybe that's premature, especially given how that season went for them last year, where they didn't use them and then they used them a lot. So I guess still room for him to rise from the dead, like you said, but you can cook Colston Colston Loveland. If you haven't already, you should cut him.
Yeah. In a home league, you're cutting him. Obviously, like in FFPC, there's no way you're cutting him. You know,
No. Yeah, correct.
Because the ceiling there in the tight end premium format is also just so high where hey, he gets in and he's the number 2 target on the Bears offense. Like that's just such a tremendous ceiling that you're sad that it's not helpful right now, but you're not, saying it could never happen. But it's certainly not happening yet. Someone who it is happening right now for is Tucker Kraft. He has a really good game off the back of the Jordan Reed injury where things begin to consolidate a little bit more for the Packers pass catchers. He has a ton of yards after catch. I haven't been the biggest Tucker Kraft believer, where in the past I thought his production was a lot of like, hey, he's the little outlet guy, like on these little dump offs, and then he ends up getting a lot of yards after catch. It's like you like that. Yards after catch are good, but to me, it wasn't like he wasn't going to be able.
His games were built on short yardage passes, and then he fucking houses it.
It's like if Evan Engram
barely any targets, but when he did, he'd house a couple of them.
Yeah, it was like Evan Engram with juice.
But you can't build a plane on that. But now you add like pretty strong routes, pretty strong targets. He's also going to house short targets. So it's looking pretty strong for Tucker Kraft. I agree.
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on him going forward. He's a guy where like for best ball, his price was much lower on DraftKings than it was on Underdog. And so I have a bunch of him on DraftKings. I'm overweight and I'm super underweight on Underdog. Feels bad on the Underdog teams, but it's also like, well, it was a price difference. And that was, I played it, that way. And so I'm still not to the point where I'm like fully sold that like all my DraftKings Tucker Kraft teams are going to win everything because he's such a smash. I'm like a little hesitant to jump at the one, and really it's like this, this second game was the really big one for him. But I would say I'm trending with, in the much more bullish direction for Kraft than I previously was. So it's setting up to be strong for him right now. The other guy, I think this will be the one that we'll probably talk about the longest here, is Brock Bowers. So Bowers still strong targets per route run. It decreases from week 1 where he played fewer snaps. He actually plays more snaps in week 2, higher percentage of the snaps in week 2 with the knee brace on. He did look a little hampered to start the game. Some notes that I had from watching every snap of this game, and I was watching Bowers specifically, basically every play, because I have quite a bit of financial interest in Brock Bowers. So here's what I saw. The Chargers were very much focusing on taking away Brock Bowers. He was bracketed on an extremely high number of plays where they were committing a lot of defenders to Brock Bowers. There were still some plays where it didn't matter that Brock Bowers was double covered. They just threw to him anyway. But there were a lot of plays where he's double covered. At the beginning of the game, if you go back to week 1, when Brock Bowers was on the field, the first place Geno looked in almost every play was to Brock Bowers. It was like just every time Geno's looking at Brock Bowers in week 1. In week 2, that was not the case at the start of the game. Like the whole first half, basically, he wasn't looking. His head was on the opposite side of the field than Bowers. And to me, that is maybe indicative of like, hey, they didn't think Bowers was totally 100%, so they didn't want to pepper him with targets. They were happy to use him as a decoy and just take all this double coverage. So that was near the start of the game. As the game progressed, they started to just be like, okay, we need to do more Brock Bowers stuff. He got more targets as the game went on. Geno also misses him badly for a touchdown near the end of the game. Bowers is open. He's in the end zone, and Geno just sails him, unfortunately. It also was a catch where I've seen Brock Bowers elevate enough to get that in the past, so I do wonder how much the knee affected him. I would say since he played, even more snaps, then he's probably a minor deal where it's just like, hey, it's not a big time injury. He'll probably be back.
I'm gonna say like there sometimes even with the very 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 best players, the defense just says you're not winning through this guy, and they don't have the monster games. Like that happened for Brock Bowers last year, towards the end of the year. I think it was the Falcons they played, where Gretchen and I had we had a big root and interest in Bowers, and like we needed a big game, and a big game would have put us over, but they just decided no Brock Bowers, and like you had that with AJ Brown with the Chiefs in week 1. Like I remember there was like Julio Jones games where no Julio Jones. Sometimes there's CD Lamb games, and still getting what was it like? I think it was like 5 targets.
Yeah,
so like
I think he gets 8 targets in the game, 5 receptions,
5 catches.
Yeah.
So still solid. Honestly, still solid. From like you watched the game. I didn't stay up for it. I didn't watch it in the morning. So you have like the kind of more watch the game take. From a statistical standpoint, like it just feels like you're not going to hit, like you're not going to get a smash game every game. Like that's just not how this works. And so if you're going to get a floor game and you're still getting 5 catches, that still seems pretty good.
Yeah, it did. The frustrating thing with watching the Raiders last night was it really seemed like they were allergic to using their best players. Like they're taking Genty off the field for Dylan Laube and getting Zamir White in there. And, Bowers is not getting targeted. They're targeting, Deontay Thornton and Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker. And,
I kind of get it in the start of the game where like, hey, he's a little banged up. They're putting all of their attention on taking this guy away. We kind of like these other guys. Let's see what they can do. And then where they're like, okay, well, like actually, we need Brock Bowers to do Brock Bowers things.
Yeah, and so that's kind of my takeaway is I'm thinking that they'll learn the lesson of like it's just got to go through this guy. Like he's our dude. Like this is how it has to be. That's probably going to come across as copium, given how much of a Brock Bowers bull I am. But I feel like that's the most likely outcome is they've just got to learn the Brock Bowers lesson, where it's like, just like the Rams know. Yeah, the Rams know where their bread is buttered. The Rams spam Puka Nacua over and over and over, and they make it work. Like it doesn't matter that defenses know that it's going to go to Puka Nacua. They find a way because he's your best player. And I think the same will be true for Brock Bowers. Hopefully he can get over the knee injury, doesn't need the brace next week. I mean, what the Raiders actually needed? They really needed some stuff to slow down that Chargers pass rush. Like a Brock Bowers end around where all of a sudden, like all these guys in the pass rush are committed and just flying by him. And he ends up taking a handoff, and now he's one-on-one with a linebacker, and then he gets by that, and it's like, okay, and now Brock Bowers just has safeties to be like. That could have been the kind of thing that they needed in the arsenal to really slow the Chargers down, because the Chargers were just pinning their ears back and getting them. Like it was ugly. It was rough to watch. If you're a Raiders fan and you missed the game, congratulations. Like don't go back and watch it. It was not. You didn't want to see that as a Raiders fan. So I got to hope they learn the lessons from that game. But we can move on from Bowers. A guy that I wanted to talk about who got a good number of targets, Jatavion Sanders. Now, the Panthers had a huge number of plays. The Cardinals end up with a terrible fumble near the end of the game to open the door for the Panthers to try and come back. I think the Cardinals really, really stink, man. They may be very bad. I'm trying to let me pull up.
So let me go on what I think on Jatavion. So he's at 65% routes. The other guys are at 33% and 5%. So he's what you see on the chart here, where he's kind of like in tiers of starter. he's kind of like a lower top tier reality starter where he's get like he's not. This is not a committee. This is not a tight end committee. This is like he's a starter, and then the other guys will get some run too, and if you see that continued and he's continuing to get the targets, and they're continuing to drop back as much as they have to, like Ja'Tavion Sanders is especially at cost, like tight end premium is I think is pretty good.
He was great for tight end premium. He's just getting the PPR scam stuff. So I pulled up what I wanted to pull up, and it felt like this from watching the game, but I'm glad to confirm it with the PFF stats. Basically, all of the Ja'Tavion Sanders targets are just right in front of Bryce Young, middle of the field, less than 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. It's all these little rinky-dink emergency panic, get the ball out type shit, or it's these quick hitters. I think it's a symptom of the offense as a whole being dysfunctional, where Bryce is just not being successful at operating within structure a lot of the time. He's really struggling to actually push the ball down the field. There'll be spurts where it's going okay with Tet, but yeah, I think this is the symptom of the offense being broken, where it's like he's just taking these little checkdowns and they're just not really doing anything. It's just like how we
checkdowns.
I mean,
they're not checkdowns. He's getting he's got like 9.4 ADOT.
They're not checkdowns. That's not fair. But they're all, just from watching them, they're all these little quick, like,
right. I get you.
Quick release routes. Like it's very.
My takeaway from watching Bryce. So I actually did watch a good few of the dropbacks. Is that when the defense was in zone, he was actually pretty good at identifying the seams in those zones and hitting those, and so that probably does suit Ja'Tavion a little more, and I think that lines up a little bit more with him getting decent yardage on the throws too. But when they're against man and he has to fit it in there, he's not at home with that.
I think that's a good read there. Okay, that's enough Ja'Tavion Sanders. The other guy that I think we have to talk about, we mentioned him last week as well, but Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren is just taking, how the last year the Colts, it was Pittman and Downs both getting a ton of that first read stuff last year. Tyler Warren is that this year. They're really, really Bears, take notes. You draft a tight end really high, maybe get him involved, make him a focal point. But yeah, Tyler Warren getting super, super involved. He had a ton of yards after catch as well. I think he was second only to Tucker Kraft this week. So he's looking like a smash at cost. Just the trend from week one seems to be confirmed with him.
Right. Yeah. Where I think I saw that Gretsch was saying that, hey, he's the primary in a lot of these RPOs, which makes a lot of sense. So like kind of like it does seem like kind of like a perfect fit for the offense. Great player, and his style is a perfect fit for the offense. That they've kind of like actually they correctly identified who would work for them and how to get them involved. So that does seem pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Two more guys on the tight end chart, and then we can move on to wide receivers. Sam LaPorta. Are you worried about Sam LaPorta? Is there better stuff to come in the future? What are your LaPorta thoughts?
So give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up. I'm pulling up the general LaPorta stuff. So week 2, they had 29 dropbacks, which is obviously down because they were beating the brakes off of the Bears. So 72% route rate, after an 88% route rate in week 1. 4 targets after 8 targets in week 1. I don't know. Like, that's not ideal, obviously. I think he's like a good tertiary target for the Lions. Obviously not encouraging that they beat the brakes off somebody and he's not having a great game. But he had eight targets for 79 yards in week 1. And followed by a down game. Are you worried? You're probably worried at the FFPC cost where you went in round 4. That doesn't feel great, especially when we're talking about kind of like these mid-round smashes and late round smashes. I don't think you're worried. Like, he's still going to have his days, but you're probably a tad disappointed so far, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I think he's definitely, you're not happy with the costs that you paid there. Let me ask you about a couple guys who just straight up, you can magically swap LaPorta for this guy on your best ball teams. You want Sam LaPorta or you want Tyler Warren?
At this point, you want Tyler Warren, don't you?
Yeah. Sam LaPorta or Tucker Kraft?
I think that's pretty close. I think I'd probably give LaPorta the edge there.
Okay. Sam LaPorta or Kyle Pitts?
That's so funny because Kyle Pitts is obviously he's emerged from the dead, where he's seeing 80% routes, then a 21% targets per run, 5.2 ADOT. Like we would have killed for this this usage last year. Like we were on our hands and knees like begging for this usage. I think that's again pretty close, but probably do lean at LaPorta, but pretty close. Okay. This is a great outcome for Pitts.
Yeah. All right, just 2 more. Sam LaPorta, Jatavian Sanders.
LaPorta.
Yeah, I agree.
I get the sense the next one's gonna be easy too.
I don't know. It depends on your persuasion. Sam LaPorta or Harold Fannin?
Oh, it's LaPorta.
It's still LaPorta, but the slappy inside really wants to say that it's Harold Fannin.
Yeah, I have a home league where I've got LaPorta on my bench, and I see Fannin there, and I'm like, should I do it? But no, you gotta do LaPorta. Yeah.
All right. I think those are all the tight ends. The only other one I had notes on was Pitts, but we talked enough about him.
Yeah, and I don't feel the need to torture ourselves with any more backup tight end discussion.
Yeah, Evan Engram, super toast, by the way. We talked about him possibly being toast last week, but he had the ankle injury. He left twice with an ankle injury, so it was like maybe it wasn't actually rotational Evan Engram. Maybe it was just no. I think he played 51% of snaps this week. You might say that, he was still hampered by the ankle injury. He's off the injury report, though. But, guy still could have a little bit. It doesn't really matter. Like, you tell yourself whatever makes you sleep at night. But I'm just telling you to help you. Evan Engram doesn't belong on your fantasy roster anymore. He's not a thing.
Yeah. Like, the Joker is whoever drafted him, unfortunately, which is me as well. I drafted him too, but
I haven't been a dynasty league where I could have flipped him this offseason on the Joker role signing news, and I'm putting the clown makeup on right now.
So I guess on the receiver chart here, I don't want to spend too much time on Ja'Marr Chase just because I think he's just doing the things that he was kind of expected to do. The sort of surprising stuff, let's start off with Zay Flowers and JSN, where I think I know that Jacob had kind of like a thing like comparing them, like, hey, why isn't Zay Flowers being talked alongside JSN, and I think he's right.
Yeah.
Where they're like kind of like low drop back offenses, but both these receivers are just the guys. And they have really high usage rates. Like we're looking at them around 100% weighted targets per run. Like that's like Tyreek Hill from 2023 when he was on a snap limitation rate. So obviously pretty unsustainable, but love to see absolute focal point, and they are smashing. So that I think that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, this is what the Zay Flowers breakout looks like. This is what the JSN breakout looks like. Man, I wish I had more JSN because I really felt like he was a player that I was more bullish on, but I didn't really IKB to him enough. That's one where I wish I had that opportunity back because I should have slammed him. The other, I mean, I gotta take an L on a guy here, Rome Odunze. I mean, he's running super hot on touchdowns right now. Like I don't think does he have 3 touchdowns so far? Am I correct?
I don't know. Give me a second. Sorry, that sounds like something that we should have on hand for a stat show.
No, it's okay. I sprung it upon you. I believe he does. Yeah, he's got 3 touchdowns. So listen, everybody, Rome Odunze will not score 25 touchdowns this season, which is what he's currently on pace for. So we're going to see a little regression here. His price was really hot, where he basically had to do this to pay the price off. Unfortunately for me, he is doing this. So it's not great right now. I really don't think the process was that bad to fade him. Is like I'm still not even getting buried by him. He's having crazy games already, and I'm not getting buried yet just because the price was so high.
But he's good.
If he keeps doing this, I'm dead and buried by him. But
like that to me, that's the main takeaway. Rome Odunze is good.
Yep, like he's good. Yeah.
Like maybe obviously the offense is failing, but he individually is smashing, and he's so far he's taken DJ Moore's lunch money. Like it's kind of interesting that what they installed DJ Moore as the X this year put Odunze in the flanker role, and that kind of seems to mean that they're prioritizing getting Odunze the ball more, which is what they're doing. He's a strong player, and you're obviously starting Odunze wherever you have him.
Yeah, one guy I wanted to mention there's a through line with JSN and Odunze and Brian Thomas Jr., and that is that we have seen Shane Waldron touch the lives of all of these men. And when Shane Waldron was involved with JSN did not perform to his expectations. Still had a fine rookie year, but underperformed relative to expectation. Waldron leaves town. JSN immediately supplants DK Metcalf as the wide receiver 1, so much so that they go and trade DK Metcalf in the offseason. And now JSN looks like, he's in the tier of like power slot receiver like CeeDee Lamb. Like he's operating at that level, like the Amon-Ra, the CeeDee Lamb of the NFL, where this is the guy where the offense flows through him and he can operate it at all depths of the field and win everywhere. And then you get Rome Odunze, where Shane Waldron touches his life. He has a terrible rookie season, just, looks like an abject bust. And Shane Waldron leaves, and all of a sudden Rome Odunze is out here just rubbing my nose in it. And then you have Brian Thomas, who Shane Waldron has come into his life, and he goes from electric rookie season, it's getting drafted at the end of the first round, to now, he's getting cucked by De'Ami Brown out there on the field. So one has to ask, is the Shane Waldron trend so strong that when Shane Waldron's inevitably fired from the Jags passing game coordinator job next year, do we buy the Brian Thomas bounce back? And more importantly, if Shane Waldron somehow weasels his way into another NFL organization, do you just fade those pass catchers at all costs?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that's the story at this point. I'm still not ready to bury Brian Thomas.
No,
Obviously,
I was being a little melodramatic.
yeah. But it's a good like segue to Brian. So we just talked about guys having great success this year. So Brian Thomas, obviously not. His usage fantastic, his results terrible, and I think I saw the ETR. They did their expected fantasy charts, and he's like one of the most under expected guys on that chart of any kind of skill position. And I know the vibes are bad where people are like, hey, he's not ready to take the shots over the middle. He's kind of alligator arming stuff that he should be kind of stronger on the catch point. It's hard for me to kind of predict how that goes because the tape watchers are like, this dude is playing bad. And it's hard for me to like, how do we juxtapose that with, we know he's good. Do we think that he just continue, like, has he just like have the Monstars or Shane Waldron stolen his talent and he will be bad forevermore? I think you have to react to the per play. Like, you've got to adjust your expectations for Brian Thomas on that, but you also keep in mind that he's got a lot of talent, and you very well could see a return to form. So I guess it feels like a high variance play where at anything near to the old cost. Like you don't play that, but if the vibes continue to like deteriorate over this week, and let's say I'm trying to think of examples. Let's say he has another bad week, and then he ends up being like fucking 4K or 5K on DraftKings, and nobody wants to play him. That's kind of a scenario where you could play into it. If like obviously if somebody cuts him, you pick them up right away. Like you still want to play that upside, but you kind of do want to make sure that your cost is right. Is what I'm guessing. I'm saying.
Yeah. Let's talk about some other guys.
Am I being too cold on him there? Like,
I mean, I don't think you're being particularly cold. I mean, you said you're not out on him by any means. You're not ready to call him dead and buried. And I think that'd be a bit of an overreaction to do that. So he's someone where he's off to a slow start, but he showed us so much as a rookie that I'm not overwhelmingly concerned about it. It's more of an annoyance than a concern to me right now is how I would frame it.
Okay. Sounds like you're a little more optimistic than I am.
Yeah, I just want to zoom out on the chart with a guy that was as talented as he was in his rookie.
Right. Yeah. Super
some other guys that are in this same quadrant of the chart that I want to just kind of like quickly go through. Mike Evans, I think another guy who's a strong candidate for like a big eruption game, getting a lot of opportunity in the weighted targets per route run, but he's below that median red dotted line there. So probably underperforming relative to his opportunity. And just from watching the game, like looks good right now. Like had a big play called back due to a pass interference penalty. Like you could easily spin me a yarn where Mike Evans has a 3 touchdown game on the near horizon. You know, he can still do Mike Evans things. Wouldn't surprise me at all. The other one
for Drake London, probably.
I was about to go to Drake London. Yeah. The thing that's like a little worrying with Drake London for me is I do think that he is like a step down in talent where he's very good, but he's not the same as like a Nico Collins or a Brian Thomas level talent. I think he's closer. Like even I'd say Lad McConkey is much more talented than Drake London from like a actual football player, like who is the best at playing wide receiver standpoint. Like I think Lad McConkey clears him there. I don't think Drake London is bad by any means. But like Drake London's a worse football player than JSN. He's like probably a worse football player than Zay Flowers. He's like a Michael Pittman plus to me. Like he's of that archetype where he's this bigger possession receiver, where he's going to get this crazy volume. I mean, you've seen him get crazy target volume. He just hasn't done a ton with it yet this season. I think you still can benefit a ton from just being willing to buy any negative perception on him with the poor start to the season he's had, because anyone that's getting the kind of targets that he's earning can put up a monster game. You know, he could just do Michael Pittman things and catch, you know, week 1 he has 15 targets, catches 11 of those and, you know, goes for 10 yards a pop. Like that's a huge game in PPR, you know, throw a touchdown in there and maybe you got a stew going. So he's not someone that I'm out on by any means, but he is someone where I want to like, and I'm ready for this, you know, take to age like milk, but he's one where I think collectively as a fantasy community, we probably need to recalibrate our talent assessment of him. Like, I think he's better than Michael Pittman, but I think like in that category is closer to where he is, you know, like a Jacoby Myers plus Michael Pittman plus type of guy.
You're saying he's in the tier in between those guys and let's say Nico Collins.
Yeah, he's like ahead of Michael Pittman, ahead of Jacoby Myers, but he's clearly a full tier down from like Nico Collins, Lad McConkey. Like, how would you categorize Chris Olave?
You're calling him Olave fantastic.
Yeah, like better talent wise than Drake London, right?
Like, has earned targets. To me, those guys come out as pretty close.
Okay.
Like I think they're pretty close prospect wise. They've shown pretty similar ability to earn targets. Like they're not like you're not in that kind of Justin Jefferson tier where it's just like nobody can cover this guy. He's just going to torch you. But still, like they're still very, very good. Like a strong target earners and producers. Probably maybe not quite able to ascend to elite level out of like weird situations. I guess this is the best situation Drake London's ever been in his career. But he's obviously not been able to ascend out of like bad situations to like a fantastic degree.
Yeah.
And probably similar with Olave, where I think Olave is great, but I do think London is similar.
Is there anyone else on this chart that you wanted to spend time on, or should we move on?
Yeah. We can do some quick hitters where George Pickens, I think, clear Robin to CeeDee Lamb's Batman. Not a great surprise or anything like that. But it's been pretty clear through 2 weeks. Same with DJ Moore, which is surprising, but that's what the case has been. Same with Marvin Harrison to Trey McBride. Then what else? I think that covers it. I don't think I have anything to say that anybody would be surprised to hear on this chart. I guess I do note that Emeka Egbuka's still kind of in this weird, not like okay-ish opportunity per route run metric. He's still okay-ish there, not great. We'll want to keep an eye on that.
He was banged up.
Improves.
He was banged up at the end of the game yesterday. They were wrapping. I think it was a wrap for his hamstring. They were wrapping like his upper leg, like hamstring area. I believe it was probably a hammy that they were wrapping him for. But during the game, they were actually commenting on like how tight that wrap was and that it looked like it was hindering him a little bit. He gets a target, down the middle, could be a touchdown, but just looks like he's not. It was a tough throw as well. Like it would have been a hard.
Is that the one where you have to kind of like go over the shoulder?
Yep.
Like,
yep.
Yeah, that one. I remember people were like, "Oh, you dropped it." I'm like, "That's a pretty tough catch to make."
It was a tough catch, and he's he just got wrapped up on the sideline. Like the guy is probably not moving at his very, very best right there. So not super concerning to me. The ones that I'll very quickly just say my piece and we can go to the next chart. Rashid Shaheed, very much like the third fiddle in that offense behind Juwan Johnson, Chris Olave. Jameson Williams, the JMO Fish get bailed out again by the long touchdown. And you can say that's the thesis all you want, but man, like Jameson Williams is not.
He's not what you paid for.
No, he's not. I mean, the weighted targets per route run are nothing. Like, I mean, he was well on his way to
enjoy your prayer yards.
Yeah. DK Metcalf also just like you're hoping and praying you got 0% DK Metcalf at this point. That is not a player you want to see on your fantasy rosters. Cedric Tillman, I think more of a mirage than anything. He catches like a deflected touchdown this week. He's probably going to be an annoyance to the Jerry Jeudy drafters who think, Jerry Jeudy is the clear alpha there. Cedric Tillman is just an annoying thorn in your side, reminding you that Jerry Jeudy is not actually that good because he cannot beat Cedric Tillman for like a strong command of the targets in the offense. And then Ricky Pearsall getting put in the cuck chair by much slower, much less athletic Juwan Jennings. Yeah, the Ricky Pearsall thing is not happening. Ricky Pearsall is like a complementary player that they can use to do occasional Debo things and then also occasional Ayuk things. He's like Timu Debo and Timu Ayuk all in one player, where he is, not going to be able to do what either of them could at their peaks, but he is like, he's athletic enough and can do some of that stuff where he's a valuable piece in their offense. But I would be ready for the Ricky Pearsall role to decrease as the season progresses when you get healthy George Kittle and healthy Brandon Ayuk back in the lineup, because already we're seeing, hey, CMC is the number one pass catching option, then it's Juwan Jennings, and then Ricky Pearsall is here.
Pearsall, so tertiary NFL player.
Yep. And that's without, two better players competing for targets. So Ricky Pearsall down the stretch, you're like, if you're in a league where you could trade Ricky Pearsall now, get rid of him because you will not want to have him on your team come fantasy playoffs. In a league where you're having to choose start sit, you will never be able to start Ricky Pearsall when it's like week 15, 16, 17 without some injury to these other guys. Ted McMillan's awesome, by the way. I'm praying for an Andy Dalton start. Give me Andy Dalton so my Ted McMillan shares can flourish. All right, that's all for this chart.
Yeah. So moving on to these aren't the backups, but they're the not the backups. They're not the 85% plus route run receivers. They're not the part timers either. They're kind of in between, where they're like clear starters, but not kind of full every down route guys. I know you were pretty pleased. I have a bit of Wan'Dale as well. Gretsch was pretty pleased that we got some air yards. We finally saw the college air yard earning Wan'Dale materialize in the NFL, and he had a great week and off strong opportunity.
Yeah, you love to see the thesis play out there. Gretsch talked about him in Stealing Signals this week and described him along the lines of like, he's probably a guy that's just like a really good floor play that will occasionally have these spikes and you love to see it. I mean, for best ball purposes, Wan'Dale is like calling him a league winner is too much, but he is like league winner adjacent. He's an advanced rate monster. Like Wan'Dale, if you have a team with Wan'Dale on it, if this continues, which I expect the trend to continue, where he's able to earn targets and they're not all confined to the short area stuff that he was confined to last year when he had 140 targets, he's going to be a tough out. If you're going against Wan'Dale teams in your pods, you're like, damn, someone else has Wan'Dale here. Like, it's going to be harder for me to advance. Like, the price on him was just so cheap for what you're getting. And you can say the same thing about Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's one that I was totally out on and wrong on. I think I probably just assigned – we talked about this last week, so we don't need to rehash it again. But I think I just assigned too high of a chance that he was totally washed and didn't attribute enough of that to the Bears and Caleb Williams stinking last year. But yeah,
we're getting late career Keenan Allen aging gracefully.
Yeah,
where he's not an every route guy by any means, but when he is out there, boy, do they love throwing to him. He must get open a lot.
He's just an awesome guy to have on your best ball teams. The spikes probably won't be quite as high, but like he's good to score a touchdown and good to get 5-6 catches. And so when you get those touchdown weeks, it's just going to be enough where you're like, yep, getting Keenan Allen the 14th looks really, really good. So fully capitulating on Keenan Allen. And then kind of this triumvirate of like late round wide receivers that look like they're not quite good enough to be league winners, but they're advance rate monsters is what I'm going to call them, is Troy Franklin. I mean, now Troy Franklin, I have less confidence in. Wan'Dale and Keenan, I'm ready to I'll write that in ink for this season. Like the story of how the season goes for them, barring injury or something terrible, is those guys are going to propel teams to way above average advance rates just because how bad they were priced. Troy Franklin, we just get this one sample for this week of he is the primary receiver, right? They built the plane out of Troy Franklin. It's Troy Franklin.
Built the plane. He was like their top of all their skill position players. He got the most snaps on the week.
And it's Troy Franklin, short, intermediate, and deep. It's Troy Franklin in all quadrants of the field,
They absolutely built the plane around Troy Franklin. Like, he got the most routes. Like, they used them. They used them in the slot, yes, but then a bunch out wide too. So in 12 personnel, he must have still been on the field as, I guess, definitely went 90% route rate. He got by far the most targets. He rewarded the team on those targets by turning them into yardage. And he scored as well, right?
Yes, he did.
So it's kind of like you've got that one piece in the back of your mind is this, did Sean Payton just decide, hey, this defense has this weakness that Troy Franklin is going to exploit this week, but then next week it's back to the Courtland Sutton show. You've got that little bit. Was this just a temporary thing for him? But the fact that they built the plane on him and it worked, I guess at least offensively, is pretty strong in his favor. Like I feel pretty good about it, but there is still that you never know.
Yeah, there's more of a chance that this was a mirage than something real. You're hoping to see it again next week. The last guy that kind of fell into this archetype as far as where he was priced in best ball drafts, that doesn't look to be as strong of an advance rate monster as these other guys, but is still someone I'm really happy to see on my teams, is Romeo Doubs, who, as the Packers deal with the Jaden Reed injury, we see the targets condense more. Doubs is running lots of routes. He's out there. He's someone you're happy to have right now. Not really going to be startable in a managed format, more than likely, but he's someone where you're pretty happy to have him on your best ball rosters. We kind of had, the sidekick had its favorite late round receivers, and it almost did become a bit, whereas collecting the infinity stones of these late mispriced receivers, or it really wanted to smash, Wan'Dale and Romeo Doubs and Pop Douglas. And so it seemed Wan'Dale and Doubs seem pretty good. And it's at the cost of having Pop Douglas on your team. So Yeah,
I think with Dobbs, you've gotten kind of confirmation that the floor is there. Like you've gotten a floor of routes. You've got some ceiling in that he can score touchdowns. I like you're saying, I do feel less encouraged by him than the other guys. Even with the Jaden Reed injury, I think the primary beneficiary of the Jaden Reed injury is probably Wicks, who actually got more targets than Dobbs last week. But you like Wicks needed that injury. Jaden Reed is probably going to come back and he'll be back on the bench and most snaps again. But Dobbs, you love to see the touchdown. You love to see the targets. You've got a nice kind of floor play there as a ballast for the end of your roster on in best ball.
Yeah, I think an interesting note here is the two Bills guys that show up. You get Keon Coleman and Joshua Palmer, where Keon Coleman higher route share than Palmer, but they have similar weighted targets per route run. The variance so far to scoring fantasy points has gone Keon's way with the big week one. But I think this really illustrates why like the Josh Palmer as a Keon Coleman arbitrage was a pretty solid strategy. It's just the Bills are going to spread it around, and no one guy is gonna get it every week. I mean, you were just paying
crazy. So Keon Coleman went from a 94% route rate guy in week one, and then week two he's at 63%. And actually, Josh Palmer ran more routes in week two. I do wonder how much of that was like the game is over for a long stretch.
That definitely could be part of it. I think in general, though, my takeaway is you were paying way too much of a premium for the Keon Coleman what if talent scenario over Josh Palmer, given that this is what we've seen through 2 weeks. I think there's something to what you're saying, though. Like, I'd expect Keon Coleman probably to have the stronger route share to Palmer as we progress through the season, but I just don't think that it's going to be enough to justify the price. But it's interesting. Like I don't want to like bury Keon Coleman right now and say, oh, what we saw in week one is just a mirage. The breakout's not happening. Like he very well still could break out, and that's why you were paying the premium. I just think that the premium was probably a little steep given the probability of the breakout and relative to what you could get later in that same offense. So that's all.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Last guy I wanted to hit on here real quick is in Khalil Shakir, we also see way lower weighted targets per route run. Would not shock me at all to see the other two guys that we just talked about move towards Shakir and Shakir to move towards them, and they all kind of converge near the middle, because I think Shakir is probably the most talented of the three, but he's still recovering from that high ankle sprain. And we've seen that sap players, athletic ability for, weeks or months at a time. So it wouldn't surprise me if Shakir is a bit of a slow starter this season, and by October, November, we see him more taking over here. But the guy I did really want to mention briefly here is Elic Ayomanor. Very interesting. He's the way that I would want to bet on Cam Ward. I don't really want to bet on Cam Ward directly, but I think we literally said this exactly last week, but we just get another week of data kind of confirming that, where Ayomanor is the one that's exciting if it goes well, right?
Yeah. Again, I'm a little perplexed that you went from 82% routes and on to 68% in week two. Honestly, very perplexed by that. You also see Gunnar Helm's routes tick up from 18% to 34%. So maybe that was game plan specific. So you probably have a little bit of volatility in terms of Ayomanor's snap rate, as it looks like he's kind of a primary slot guy. Let me confirm that. But I agree with you that like even like let's take the routes and the snaps aside. He's still earning targets at a good rate. He's still producing with them. Obviously, what's his name? Ward is showing strong trust in him by like being willing to throw the ball like all the way across the field, and risk that football to get him a touchdown.
Yeah, Ayomanor is basically never playing in the slot. He only had 2 slot snaps last week, 46 out wide. So it's all X receiver stuff for him.
Okay, that's so then why? I was kind of coming up with that as an explanation for why. Who else played more? So Tyler Lockett, his snaps went down. Van Jefferson, he played more. So did he lose snaps to Van Jefferson?
It looks like, let's see, DK played more. DK played mostly in the slot, but he did also play additional snaps out wide as well.
Yeah. Okay. It's you can see why I'm a little bit like.
Yeah, no.
Van Jefferson played more. DK played more. Why do they take this guy off the field? Was there an injury? Anyway, I guess right for now there's a little bit of volatility in his week-to-week snap rate, but the targets there being there and him earning targets is encouraging. Him producing with those targets is encouraging. But hopefully, he spends more weeks as the 80% guy. And like you're saying, have another week of it of the target earning is great to see.
Yeah, we'll definitely monitor the situation with Ayomanor going forward here. But let's move on to the final chart of the evening. We did just crest the 2-hour mark, so it's getting to be that kind of time. Couple guys here that I'm just going to shout out as like, hey, don't worry about them. Like, it's not going to be a thing most likely. Tylan Wallace, don't worry about it. Just like a one-off touchdown. He's not going to be someone you're ever going to like have to pick up and start or anything like that. Torrey Horton like seems interesting, but I got to be honest. I'm worried with the overall passing volume from Seattle that he's just probably not going to be a thing. Maybe like in a deep league, you can go ahead and stash him. But you know, just because he looks really good in weighted targets per route run and fantasy points per game on this chart relative to these other guys, don't like get out over your skis on Torrey Horton. The other one that's like a little bit of a bummer is Jaden Higgins. And I don't even think Jalen Knoll makes this chart, but man, they're using Jalen Knoll as a punt returner. He's a great punt return, almost breaks one for a touchdown, and they refuse to let this guy actually play receiver, which is frustrating. You know, they're playing Xavier Hutchinson over him. They're playing Justin Watson, like not the kind of stuff that you want to see. But yeah, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll both look like it's going to be that classic rookie timeline where it probably takes a really long time for them.
Yeah, well, it's like they're already rotational, and now Christian Kirk comes back, so that they're even more rotational. You leave the light on them because of the long view and the talent, but like if you're holding these guys, like you're gonna have to hold them for a while.
Yeah, do you cut Jaden Higgins in an FFPC?
I don't. It depends on what's there, right? Like, do I prefer?
It also probably depends on
roster?
Yeah, it depends on how good your receivers are, right?
If I can get Ayomanor, I cut Higgins for Ayomanor, and you're right. You could have a bunch of other bums that you cut first.
Well, so like hypothetically, say that someone had a roster that was Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Tet, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins. You cutting Higgins then?
No, no, you don't. You hold on to him.
Okay.
But like like I said, it depends on what you can get. Like, you're not cutting Jaden Higgins for Malik Washington.
No.
Olamide Zacchaeus, because they're playing right now.
Right.
It's like if you can get like Ayomanor, if he's there, or if, let's say, Troy Franklin is there, and you definitely make that upgrade. You don't let Jaden Higgins hold you back from them. But you're not cutting him for some losers.
Yeah,
but he is nevertheless cuttable, is what I would say.
Okay, so you hit on another guy there with Lamar Jackson, or he's kind of just he's keeping the spot warm for Luther Burden right here, where it also sounded like from Ben Johnson that they might want Burden to take snaps away from DJ Moore, which seems crazy to me. I don't know that that's how that actually shakes out in real life. But
well, DJ Moore is the X right now. So are they going to play Luther Burden in the X? Like,
I don't know, that it was confusing to me, but that's what.
Right, that's the implication of like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what
we'll have
actually
to watch
happens
it
there.
Yeah, what I would anticipate is that Olamide Zacchaeus is the one that begins losing snaps to Burden, but we'll have to see there. The other guy that I wanted to talk about on here, we talked about Wicks already being a big beneficiary.
Yeah,
Matthew Golden, Matthew Golden kind of seems to be in the Christian Watson role where he's not earning a ton of targets. He's just earning like these deep shots. Right, now the perception could totally have flipped on him because there's two big missed plays for him in this last game. One would have been like a 93-yard touchdown or something crazy. If he actually gets him, he's open. Jordan Love just barely misses him. So I don't want to say like, oh, it's looking real bad for Matthew Golden. But I don't think the role is what you paid for.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't paying for the MVS role.
No. But there's room for the upside here with Reed, leaving more room for someone to emerge and take more work. So he's not dead, but he's also
it's not a great start.
Yeah. Travis Hunter also in the not dead, but it's disappointing right now. Now, Hunter's been earning a lot of volume. He's got a lot of targets through 2 weeks. Just all this, most of it rinky dink, and then some of the deeper stuff that he had just missed. There's different universes where he catches that deep touchdown pass,
and the perception is better.
It's still better.
Like what you're looking at is a prior yards, like high variance usage, where like some weeks. On the current usage, some weeks he's going to score 15, and then some weeks he's going to score 4.
The other hard part is he got more snaps on defense last week, and it was at the expense of his snaps on offense. It wasn't the dream scenario of
you're talking about are we talking about Travis Hunter now?
Sorry, yeah, I'm on to Hunter now.
Sorry, yeah, that was pretty tough. That was pretty tough. Where it's like you may have said it's the opposite. Of like he's getting screens and stuff, and it's like that's certainly not what you drafted Travis Hunter for. So certainly very, very concerned with Travis Hunter. It's kind of weird the way that they're using him. Like, why did you use why did you spend all that draft capital if you're going to use him like a weird kind of like I forget the term I'm looking for, but kind of like short rinky-dink stuff.
Yeah, gadgety. Yeah,
gadget. Yeah, why did you use all that draft capital for a gadget play, and then a not very good cornerback too?
So right now he's got 10 of his 13 targets are either short or behind the line of scrimmage. He's got 3 that are medium, and then he had the 1 deep ball that could have connected and been a touchdown. Does not. They need
to put Shane Waldron off from the. They need to take the PlayStation controller out of his hands.
Yeah,
that's my
take. It's also the deeper stuff seems like it might be getting forced to him because he has 4 targets that are either medium, so 10 to 19 yards down the field, or deep. He's got 1 that's 20 yards down the field. Of those 4 targets, 2 of them have turned into interceptions. So I don't know, man. It's
we saw that one of them was like he was open, but it was a bad throw.
It's and major underthrow. Yep. So the vibes aren't fantastic, and you're actually the worry that we thought we thought that we didn't need to be worried about the usage. We thought, oh, we're getting the dream deployment. He's going to be running 80% of the routes. It's like, yeah, maybe not actually. Maybe we do need to be worried about the deployment and the usage. So I think the takeaway for me on Travis Hunter more is like, not that we're ever really going to have to handle a situation like this again, but just in general, I want to keep situations like this really ambiguous in my mind when I'm, when we're projecting stuff like this out for future seasons. And obviously we're not going to have a two-way player that we're doing, right? But just like learning the lesson of like, hey, even when you're getting the news that makes you feel more bullish about the guy, like, oh, they said it's going to be 80% on offense, it's going to be exactly what we want. Like, just remembering that like coaches lie, and also they might not even be trying to lie. Like, stuff just changes. And so just being comfortable applying a lot more ambiguity and uncertainty to situations like this, I think is good from like a, hey, how do we
you were certainly getting the discount for the ambiguity. I'm not sure I would play it all that differently to how I did.
I think the price with the ambiguity properly factored in was probably closer to like a sixth round rather than like he was going like in the fourth and the fifth for a lot of it on underdog. And
oh yeah, I guess I have an FFPC perspective where
FFPC he was going later. That price was a lot more palatable to me. Given the tight end premium format where, the ADPs of the wide receivers should get pushed down just a smidge because you're having more tight ends go earlier. And then also you've got the running back heavy format there where people just draft more running backs. It's probably like a early seventh is like the fair price, maybe mid seventh, like if you're properly pricing the risk and the ambiguity. But on underdog, the price seemed a little crazy. And he actually was more expensive on DraftKings, believe it or not. So it's like, I think the market just got it a little wrong in that they did a poor job assessing the risk there. So that's one where I just wanted to like file that away as like a broader lessons for future. And for going forward, it's like, don't panic. He's got a lot of targets through 2 weeks, like it could definitely break his way still. But if it
does break his way, to me, the price is still like, you're getting like at least a full round to round and a half discount on like TET, maybe more of a discount. So if it hits in the way that you want it to, like it still hits pretty hard at the price you got, I think.
Yeah. The whole Jags offense just seems a little dysfunctional right now, at least in the passing game. So maybe they get that figured out and we're not even sweating Travis Hunter in the coming weeks, but
it's been disappointing so far.
Yeah. Those were all the guys I wanted to talk about. Was there anyone else that you wanted to mention before we finish up here?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, I guess that's week 2 in the books. Another showdown. We'll be back here next Tuesday for week 3.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone.